Welcome to Media Rebel Unplugged. I'm Janice Becker. Joining me today is Zerina Derveni. She's a life coach who works with high achieving women, helping them navigate self-discovery, build emotional clarity, and put their purpose into action. Today, we are going to be discussing how we can break free from self-doubt and find your true path. And I love how passionate Zerina is. You have quite the background, and I would just love if you would share with us a little bit about what that is and what led you to becoming a life coach.
Thank you for having me. And I've actually been looking forward to this conversation. A little bit about my background. So I think like most millennials, I was kind of in the same mindset of, go to school, get as many degrees, start your first corporate job, and then climb up the ladder. So that to me was the definition of, true success. And that's exactly what I did. I went to university, I studied law, I studied business. I even got into corporate communication and PR, Janice. I thought you'd appreciate that. But then started my corporate professional experience. And at that time, I grew as an executive. I did really well. And I'm definitely so proud of my milestones and the things that I've achieved. But I think for me, my journey, the one thing that kept coming up every 2, 3 years, and I had changed companies every 2, 3 years. So that 2 year mark, there was this inner voice saying, is this it? Like, is this going to be your life? Like, this is, your career path, and this is what you're going to be doing every day, that the whole hustle and the long hours and dealing with people that you don't necessarily maybe share the same values, right? And in companies, you got to, put on a performative act and get along with everybody if you want to do well. So there was this inner voice that kept coming up. And then finally, the last company I worked for, I started to actually listen to that voice. And I call it a awakening stage where we all have it. But a lot of us, like including myself during my earlier years, you just kind of surpassed it, right? Because life is busy and you've got responsibilities. Started listening to that inner voice. I started to get into coaching more so from a client perspective, not even thinking I would get into coaching. Did a Tony Robbins seminar. It was like a 7 day intense seminar where there was a lot of breakthroughs and just understanding of, values and how I was making decisions. And I think I had my aha moment probably 6 to 8 months into that self-discovery journey. And then I also sat on that for another 6 months to really make sure it was something I wanted to do, and to pursue coaching was just internally, it just felt right. It felt like I reached this fulfillment that I've never felt before. The why was answered. Now the how was not, but that's what I was working towards. And then I made a decision to leave corporate and invest in myself and started my own boutique coaching firm.
Yeah, I really resonate with you on that. Again, coming from the corporate world, and then I was with this smaller agency, and I felt like I had this calling for a higher purpose that I just wasn't going to attain by being there. I felt so limited in that. And it's so funny how our journeys, it's not always a direct line to what we're going to do. And mine sure wasn't. Like I started this agency, and then somebody made some suggestion about having a podcast. And I'm like, I'd never thought of that. I am actually pretty shy at times. I'm self-critical. Like, I don't know if this is something I really want to do. It wasn't about me at the end of the day. It was about giving other people voice, like yourself, and to hear the stories of other women who've gone through similar situations of breaking free from the monotony or from our own self-doubt, and overcoming that to really become the true successful women that we can be.
Yeah, and I love that. And I admire you for doing what you're doing because even, I share a similar characteristic where I'm actually so shy. Now in work, I was not shy, like hiding behind a brand, I was not shy. Having to start my own business and me being the brand, that shyness came up again. So I had to work through that, after, receiving so much success in corporate after a decade. It was hard. It was hard to start again, but I admire the courage that you did it and didn't really make it about you, because I kind of had the same mindset too, where I was like, okay, well, this is not about me. Like, get over yourself, go through that uncomfortable growth journey and make sure that you become the advocate for women so that, they're not wasting time and they're finding their purpose and clarity much sooner. There's something really interesting that I teach, and every time I teach this concept, I feel like I give women subconsciously permission, because at the end of the day they give themselves this permission. But I always say clarity does not come from thinking. It does not come from thought, right? We as high achieving women think that we're so intelligent and that we can think through clarity. It actually comes from engagement. It comes from actually going out there and exploring. So until you do that and you give yourself the permission and grace to do that, it's really hard to find what your purpose is, or what the higher purpose of your life is. So it's great if you can explore and put yourself out there, and that's when you truly start to get clarity.
I've talked to other women similarly. If I had never taken that leap of starting my own thing, I wouldn't have met all the incredible women and other people that I have met along this journey. What is some advice that you give for women who are holding themselves back and feel apprehensive about exploring that?
When we look at reasons why we're holding back, or any of the kind of the limiting beliefs, it's all fear based, right? And I think as humans, we're all fearful of something, or of the uncertainty. So that's one layer of it, is that fear based. Now, I would challenge you to consider that the fear based, it's not your fault. It's actually all wired in your subconscious. When we look at our the way our mind works and how our brain is set up, 95% of our beliefs, values, our emotions, or our experiences are all shaped in the subconscious minds. We have these thoughts and beliefs that are maybe from a decade ago, or 15 years ago, or 3 years ago. So I would challenge you, as you're feeling that fear, where is it coming from? Have you had an opportunity to rewire what some of your belief system is, what some of those values are? And then take it from there. Now, it is a process, but I think first understanding, your limiting belief. And like I said, most of the times it's fear. Fear comes from uncertainty. Unfortunately, uncertainty is around us, but if you have a good belief system and a strong value system, you'll be able to manage uncertainty because you have a compass. So really, it's kind of, giving yourself the space and the grace to go back and challenge why you believe certain things that you believe in, right? Take it from there, journal it. And I'm now a big component of hiring a professional services, whatever. It doesn't have to be a coach, but having someone be there for you that can help you uncover some of those deeper layers that you're dealing with, because it will save you so much time. And not only time, but it will really help you not repeat patterns, so you can get to living a more fulfilling life sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think journaling is a very smart move to make. I always try to remember that fear is a liar. And if we remember that, and it's hard, I know, because we can get really stuck in, like you said, what we've been maybe taught or have believed for so long, but it's limiting us when we do that to ourselves. So I think journaling is an eye-opening way of really self-assessment. Now, what do I do from here? How do I pivot from this and change that thought?
Exactly. Yeah. And, I'm a self-discovery specialist. I'm obsessed with self-discovery. I have probably read all the blueprints. The reason why is because, how are we supposed to know what it is that we want and who it is that we want to be, right? It's such an important but vague question. And a lot of us as adults do not have necessarily the tools to come up with that. So again, bringing it back to self-discovery, there are 4 layers. There's the self-awareness, which a lot of us hopefully are, and that's the first phase, but hopefully a lot of us stay in that, right? And don't let the environment and our daily tasks take over that. But there's that self-awareness where exactly journaling, having an understanding of your strengths, having an understanding of what it is that you would like to explore, right? Because remember, clarity comes once you give yourself permission to explore and figure things out. Then there's the self-discovery, which is the second phase. And this is where I help women from self-awareness to self-discovery and figure out, what their value system is, what their belief system is, what their higher purpose is through gaining clarity. And then you go to self-love, and this other layer is just so deep, and you really start to, be more than do. right? It's this beautiful transformation. And it has to happen in phases. There's no quick fixes. You have to actually go through it, go through all the emotions, go through all the ugly stages, go through all the uncomfortable stages, go through your family and friends saying, hey, what's wrong with you, right? You have to go through all that. But when you're in the self-love, you really start to, it's an energy that you project, but you really start to attract the things that are actually good for you, not necessarily the things that you want. And this is really big on relationships, especially. And then finally, the ultimate stage, which I'm still growing through, right? I'm not afraid to say that it's self mastery, and that takes years and practice to really get to that level of consciousness. But it starts with doing the work. So I love that you said journaling. You know, gratitude is also something that's been proven by positive psychology is actually effective. There are so many great results that show if you are practicing gratitude every day, 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for, it does work in your favor. So if scientists are saying that, you can only imagine like it is a really good positive psychology practice or emotion that you can do starting now and it will work for you.
I'm glad you brought that up about gratitude because identify with it myself every morning. I have like this, I guess, ritual of some sort that I wake up and say my morning prayer and thank God that I woke up another day and thank Him for every little thing that I possibly can. And even then, catch myself, and I hope others will do this too, but throughout my day, when I start to feel overwhelmed, because that's, I think, very easy, especially as women in the corporate life, in our busy lives
Yeah.
and you start to feel some self doubt creeping in or stress, I just kind of put my hand over my heart and I'm like, I am safe. I am loved. I am blessed. And just like try to think of every little thing that I possibly can to kind of ground myself in that moment. What do you think is the best way for us to practice gratitude?
First of all, I love that example. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll have to try it myself, right? So the concept that I actually use, it's a little bit similar, but it's more so from understanding what your priorities are. And the reason why I say that is as women, we can easily get chaotic with tasks, right? Our day can be so fulfilled with all these tasks that we have to do, and we lose sight of what is priority. So for me, I've got 3 priorities every day. Self-care, right? So whatever that means for you, but for me, it means taking care of ourselves, eating right, getting hopefully enough sleep, going to the gym, going for a walk. So that is a priority every day. Work is a priority for me. It's very important. And connection, making sure that I am able to have some sort of connection, whether it's with a partner, whether it's with your family, whether it's friends, is a priority. So I think having that understanding of what my priorities are versus tasks helps me get to a point where things, when they are too chaotic or when I'm feeling down, kind of like it is in a way a gratitude form, but I always remind myself, okay, what are my priorities so that I don't lose focus or my mind doesn't go into places where you can imagine as just our brain is so intelligent, but our minds can go into places like, what are you doing? And look at, comparison. God, it's one of the worst things, but like, look what so and so are doing, or I'm not good enough, or, you just go through all those phases. But kind of going back, when your priorities are clear, it helps you kind of be more of a humble realist and bring you back to your reality and stay focused. And the bigger thing really is when your purpose is clear, right? I think that's where I see a shift in clients. So when their purpose becomes clear, and it takes time to get there, they don't sweat the small things, or the small things don't linger as often as they do before. Like they can easily like sweep it off and just continue moving forward. But gratitude, I definitely, practice 3 things I'm really grateful for. I for some reason do it at night more than in the morning, but I love a morning practice, and bringing it back, tying it back to what my daily priorities are. It does kind of give me this excitement of like, I'm doing things that I genuinely like. So it's not like it's anyone else's agenda. It's my agenda.
Yeah, prioritizing and focusing on your priorities. Like, there are some things we like do sweat the small stuff over. I myself struggle with what are priorities for me because it feels like there are so many. I'm a mom of 5 kids. I mean, two are adults, but I feel like the older they get, the more that you worry. And so, as a mother of especially somebody and a single mother, it's really hard to prioritize myself. I find with other women that I speak to, that's the same conversation that we're having. It's how do we prioritize ourselves and remove the guilt that comes along with doing it?
Yeah. So I love this question, by the way. So thank you for asking it because it is definitely something as women we all struggle with. So in order for us to truly live an authentic life and live by our values, we have to work towards things that are not helping us live for our values. The way that I've been able to move past it and help clients move past it is creating your value system. So ideally you want to create 10 things that are on your value system. This is going to be the compass of how you make decisions day to day, both personally and professionally. And then from there, you're going to create 3 things that are going to be moving you away from your values. So guilt is usually the first one there. There's also shame, there's fear. Like these are just common things that women feel, or regret, right? Or comparison. So you want to pick what your top 3 are. And if guilt is up there, like my top 3 values are contribution. So it's creating value. Connection is another one, right? That's really important to me, as well as growth. So when I feel guilty for something, I always have to remind myself, will the guilt help me create value? No, right? Guilt is one of those negative emotions that we have, again, going back to the subconscious brain that's embedded in us. So it's like rewiring and working towards, okay, well, why do we feel guilty? So I'm actually European and I was raised in North America, and I saw my grandmother, I saw my mom doing everything for the family and neglecting their needs. Now, I love that part of like being a strong woman and holding the family together. I mean, I really value that, and go aligns with a lot of my other values. But at the same time, I want to also take care of myself because when I'm feeling good, everyone around me is feeling good. So it's understanding, it's all logical, right? And it's understanding, okay, in order for me to be able to be my best self, what can I do? And that's why one of my priorities, honestly, is self-care because it's the number one thing that women neglect. And it's so upsetting because, they're doing so much and servicing so much and they're like caregivers for everybody. But self-care is like the one thing that they tend to neglect because they're taking care of tasks. Remember, not priorities.
Yeah.
So for me, it was so important that that be my first, because when I take care of myself, for the most part, right? It's not like every day it works in my favor. There's life happens, but for the most part, then I can feel better and operate better. If you're a mom, if you're a wife, if you're a girlfriend, if you're a businesswoman, whatever it is, I think you have to understand what are your priorities and make that be a habit and start small. Don't start big. Start small. And a lot of what I see on my end as a coach, change and growth, it's not linear, right? It doesn't happen like that. Sometimes you take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. Just go through it, go through the process. And remember, if it's important to you, it will stick. But if it's not, then you'll make excuses. So I think guilt, it is one of those negative emotions, unfortunately, that even biologically we have in us as women. But it's really asking yourself, okay, if I'm feeling guilty, am I able to do this? Am I able to take care of myself? Am I able to take care of my kids? Am I able to take care of no. So let's just kind of remove away from it and bring back what our values are and just remind you again, it's about moving forward really and not looking back.
It is so ironic how we grapple with this issue of self-care, but we will prioritize taking care of other people. And it's a great point. If we aren't taking care of ourselves, how are we taking care of others? Absolutely impossible. It's like this the term or the definition of insanity. And just doing
Exactly.
the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think one thing that I saw you had maybe written down on our form that we have, our intake form, was you had mentioned EQ, and I think that that is something extremely important, especially in the corporate world. How can we be better from a corporate level? What can they apply almost immediately? Because I think it's a huge component that is missing. And as women, we desperately need.
I couldn't agree more. I do a lot of converting from IQ to EQ. So this is on top of self-discovery. This is probably my second most requested coaching program because you do see such a big shift. I'll give you an example. So IQ, right? And I think I operated most of my 20s in my IQ as I was growing up the corporate ladder. And that's what really helped. There is importance to be put into intelligence, but IQ, a lot of and actually science will back this up, but they'll say that most people are born genetically intelligent, but emotional intelligence is something that can actually be learned. So that was great news for anybody that wants to be more emotionally intelligent. And really what it is being able to understand your emotions, manage your emotions, and then understand the emotions of others. So this whole black and white mindset that you have when you're intelligent, it doesn't apply anymore. You go deeper and you really start to connect and understand, why people do what they do. In the past, when I was very much in my IQ, things would frustrate me. I would be like, this is so like silly. Like, why doesn't this person get it? Everything was so logic. I lost sight of that human experience, that connection. Even though at that time you could not tell me I was not empathetic. I thought I was empathetic, but this is again showing yourself grace because we all assume that we're doing the best that we can. And I do believe that we are. So it's really that self-awareness. It's having the ability to see things that's going to help you grow. But then I started shifting into my emotional intelligence and really getting deep dive into it with coaching. And I realized how important that piece is and how it can eliminate so much pressure and expectations that we have. Even a really big one is assumptions. Like when we're in our IQ, we think we're so smart and we just live by our assumptions that once you get into emotional intelligence, your goal is to connect and seek clarity. So you don't have room for assumption. You don't allow that to dictate your next steps. So it is a really important component of my coaching. It's actually an important component of self-discovery to make that shift. There's another layer too that I teach, which is AQ, and it's all about adaptability. So once you've reached and really implemented emotional intelligence in your day-to-day life, then you can go even higher and really go into adaptability. And a lot of the CEOs in the training that I coach, I'm on that session with them right now where it's like teaching them to be adaptable and being able to shift and, not thinking the world's over because things are changing. It's like, no, this is good for me. I need to build resilience. I need to adapt. But having that compass of what their values are is important during that stage so that they don't shift too much out of who they are at their core.
I mean, that's what makes a great leader, right? Is that we are not only intelligent from the IQ level, emotionally intelligent from the EQ level, but also being adaptable because nothing is linear. Nothing in business is, nothing as a human being or in our society is going to be that way. When they're starting from the self-awareness and reflecting on that, when they finally get to the point of saying, I don't think my emotional intelligence is where it needs to be, what would you recommend they do to start building that emotional intelligence?
So I think first, again, going back to the phase one of self-discovery, it's that awakening journey. So just know that there is some room for improvement. And I think doing some research is a good start. I got into emotional intelligence by reading Robert Greene's books. So there is obviously components hidden in his books about emotional intelligence, but it wasn't necessarily the first EQ book that I ever read. But then it's like, okay, if anyone is going through the journey, I would recommend, yes, read an EQ book and first understand what emotional intelligence is, and then start journaling your emotions, right? Because again, you have to be able to understand your emotions and you have to be able to understand the emotions of others. But you need to start with a vocabulary of emotions based on where you're at. There's two women that I coach right now, and I hope they listen to this episode because they made such transformation, but they had issues in their relationships, but not in their careers. They were able to talk about their needs pretty clearly, but in relationships, when it came to expressing their emotional needs, they weren't able to do that. So we started with learning, 3 to 5 words. Let's start there, because you can't go and have this extensive vocabulary without understanding first the basics. So you can start anywhere from 1 to 3, and then from 3 to 5, and then from 5 to 7, and expand that. So I think you have to be realistic in where you're at in your growth journey, and starting small, but being clear with, again, what your typical state of emotions are. Like, I had a client who realized after, well, maybe 40 years of her life, that jealousy was a big emotion for her, and it stems from childhood, but she never saw that. And now it's like, okay, like jealousy, it's a healthy emotion. I think envy is one of those that it's not, but jealousy, it's okay because there is something that your body, your mind's telling you that you want. So let's work towards bringing that out. Let's listen to it. So she was completely shocked and did not even think at all that she had that emotion. So I would really recommend for anybody who's starting to learn and read some books on EQ, and then start understanding what their emotional state is, right? And then from there, build up some vocabulary and start to explore. Remember, we're going to explore. That's how we get to clarity. Start exploring things and seeing how people react to you performing from an emotional intelligence perspective. I have a really good example. So I'm going to use relationships because I find that they're a bit more impactful. But let's say you're in an argument with your partner, and as a woman, I can guarantee you that most of the time women will know exactly what to say to win an argument because we are more intelligent. And I'm talking about a heterosexual relationship here. So with the man, you'll know exactly what to say. That's very IQ based. Great. You were right. Good on you. Right. But let's go into emotional intelligence. Someone who is into their emotional intelligence and understands the significance of it, they're going to operate from a self respect and be able to communicate their needs and the needs of others. So you're going to say, well, look, I'm really upset for, A, B, and Z. I know you're probably upset too. So I definitely want to listen to your perspective. I want to know how we can make this better because it's important to me. Versus having that mindset of, I'm going to get you, I'm going to say the right thing. It's more so being emotionally aware that you will feel fulfillment when you connect emotionally and express emotionally, regardless the outcome. And if the outcome is not what you want, well, guess what? Your ability to move on is much more healthier versus being stuck in this IQ where it's just like righteous and, you're measuring things. So it's why I really encourage people to tap into their emotional intelligence. It is one of the most self-respectful concepts you can adapt to yourself and be true to yourself. So that way you're attracting things that are in alignment with you, and you can actually move on from things that no longer serve you much quicker being in that mindset.
I could see where especially women leaders would struggle with emotions. And I'm going to say that because I think I'm guilty myself. I think it's when you're in a leadership position all the time, whether it is as a single mom running the household and then running businesses, to lower the wall and make yourself vulnerable to sharing your emotion is difficult because you're giving away control, and part of being in this leadership role is having control all the time. And I think there's fear associated with that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Typically, there's two types of clients I attract. It's the ones that are doing really well in their careers that are struggling in their personal lives, or their personal lives is great, but then they're struggling in their careers. And the one thing that I notice is the area that they're struggling in, they're actually performing more versus being. So, I think we have in our mindset, and I used to be one of those people too, by the way, where I struggled in relationships communicating my needs because I saw it as weakness. Or I was in this assumption mindset, well, they should know better, right? Without ever expressing anything. It's like, well, you should know. And I think assumption now, to me, I look at it now like it's so dangerous. Whereas before I thought, well, I'm so intelligent. I know this, right? But I would have to say it's starting small. right? So it's again, it's knowing how to communicate from a place of self-respect, using vulnerability tools versus you thinking that you're just being vulnerable when someone's gonna, maybe not see you that way or take advantage of you. So it's having the ability to communicate your needs from a place of self-respect. And I always say you want to use desire terminology versus demanding terminology because, as humans, we respond better to that. So, and this can be used personally or professionally. But if one of your needs in a relationship is like security, or one of your needs is emotional stability or consistency, whatever it is, you'll know deep down what it is. Make sure to communicate that. Like, hey, like I really like it that every day you text me. I see you, every evening for dinner. I really like that about you. It makes me feel secure in the relationship, makes me feel good, makes me want to invest even more. So I just want to let you know that this is something that I really appreciate about you. So you're using vulnerability, you're using words that are from a desire perspective, but think about how much self-respect I have that I'm able to communicate that versus maybe being a bit snarky or being smart or not withdrawing things and not being able to communicate that. You just suppress things, right? And it just continues to kind of bundle up and internally. And, I think all of us as women can appreciate communication is key to any relationship that we have. And we are the ones that are more emotional. So it's important for us to lead that, especially in a relationship. And it's having an understanding of what your needs are would be the first step. If you have one or three, like at this stage of my life, I really value someone who is reliable. Like you have no idea. It's such a unseen value that, when I talk to women and say, what do you want in a man? It's like, oh, these great things. And I'm like, I want somebody reliable. Right. And I think that's such a great value, but I can communicate that from a place of desire, like truly, like this is what I value, like there's obviously loyalty, there's other things, but being reliable is such a big thing. And when I say it, usually the partner will be like, oh wow, like they'll feel empowered to do it. There's just so much power to being able to communicate your needs. I challenge you all to have a little bit of a mindset shift and know it comes from a form of self-worth and self-respect.
Thank you so much for sharing everything with us that you have today. I think that you really hit the nail on the head, so to speak, on so many levels. And I know I'm going to be walking away with this educated in more ways than I think I expected to be. And hopefully others will as well. For those that are looking to learn more about you, Zarina, where could they go?
You can check out my website, www.zerinalifecoach.com. There's a lot of details there about my coaching, but also about me. And in the contact section, feel free to reach out. Let me know if there's a specific area that you'd like to talk about. I love doing consultation, or I call them life strategy calls.
Great. We will include your information as well for anybody who doesn't get that in this conversation. Thank you for everybody that is listening. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.